So good evening, happy Wednesday night. We are continuing our look at Bible patterns since Bible times. So speaking of Bible times, if anyone didn't know, Bible times are over. We are no longer in Bible times. We are in times since Bible times, modern times, current times. These aren't the only times. There are upcoming times. There's what is referred to as end times. But spoiler alert, even end times aren't the end. There's something after the end times. End time really is just the end of this current time, and it's transitioned to the time after, which is the rest of eternity. And I like to say the rest of eternity because eternity, by definition, does not have a start date. Eternity not only always will be, but always has been. So when we talk about eternal things, we talk about not only forever into the future, but forever past always have been. Our God is eternal. Timeless. Amen. So we are looking at, as Brother John mentioned in his prayer, our foundation in the Word of God. We are also looking for some perspective to the writings of Messianic Jewish Rabbi Jonathan Cahn in seeing these Bible patterns in times since the Bible, looking to where God is taking things. Eventually, this will be all setting us up for our journey through the book of Revelation. So taking a quick look, going from the present to the future before we get back to the 6-day war and what the world was trying to do and the other plans that God had. I would like us to take a quick moment. For our Bible reading, we'll be in Isaiah chapter 31 for our first scripture. And I don't plan on making a habit of this as far as sharing an article or update from the outside world, but this one was quite relevant to our understanding of the future direction of things. We know God has an ultimate plan and will that will be carried out, but we know folks on this planet have their own will that they are trying to carry out as well, and the two don't agree, but God is in control of it all, of course. So this brings me to this article that I came across just the other day that relates to things happening right now and where some people are trying to take us. So the article is titled, an op-ed opinion editorial, "If you think Klaus Schwab is bad, look at his top advisors' ideas." If you don't know who Klaus Schwab is, you're about to. So bear with me here. So just sit back and check this out. Here's the article. For followers of Star Trek, one of the most memorable antagonists is the Borg, a race of beings composed of organic and biomechanic body parts linked together in a hive mind called the Collective. In their quest to achieve perfection, the Borg travel through the galaxy, extending their power and control by integrating the knowledge and technology of other alien species through a process called assimilation, whereby individuals are forcibly injected with nanoparticles that alter their cellular DNA and transform them into drones for the Collective. Each Borg has no individual thoughts or will. They are part of a group consciousness where all are constantly supervised, guided, and controlled. In an example, yep, part of the Star Trek universe, not the original series. Yes. And they're in other series besides Next Generation as well. Even had a whole movie that was really cool. Anyway, in an example of life imitating art, the World Economic Forum is a major player in world affairs today. Klaus Schwab, a German economist and mechanical engineer, economist, however you want to say that, he founded this non-governmental organization in 1971, World Economic Forum. What does economics have to do with the Borg, you may ask? Well, the WEF is best known for the annual conferences it holds in Davos, Switzerland, which bring together hundreds of political and business leaders from around the world to discuss international issues. Funded by approximately 1,000 multinational corporations, private donors, and government contributions, it is one of the most important networks in the world for the globalist power elite. In 1992, Schwab began a parallel organization called the Global Leaders for Tomorrow, name changed in 2004 to the Forum of Young Global Leaders. Applicants to this program are subjected to a very rigorous selection process. The more than 1,200 graduates include some of the most powerful presidents, prime ministers, senior government advisors, health bureaucrats, and business leaders in the world. In June 2020, at its 50th annual meeting, there's a jubilee, the WEF announced the launch of the Great Reset, an initiative to reimagine the world and transform the global economy. This effort involves transhumanism, going beyond our humanism, the development of technologies across digital and biological worlds to improve human mental and physical capabilities. That is, to make disabilities, suffering, disease, aging, and involuntary death a thing of the past. Yeah, good luck with that. Schwab described this in more detail in his 2016 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. According to him, this revolution will change not only what we do, but who we are. In a 2016 Swiss television interview, the interviewer asked when he thought implantable microchips would be implemented on humanity. Schwab said, certainly in the next 10 years. And at first we will implant them in our clothes. And then we could imagine that we will implant them in our brains or in our skin. In a 2020 book co-authored with Thierry Malleret, COVID-19, The Great Reset, Schwab declared that the COVID-19 crisis represented an unprecedented opportunity to reimagine the world. That is, to implement the Great Reset. This includes genetic engineering involving making people part synthetic, incorporating them into the Internet of Bodies, an evolution of the Internet of Things, and merging them into a required global digital identification regime in order to participate in this reimagined world. Schwab's top advisor and transhumanist, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari, openly admits that the gathering of enormous amounts of data on individuals would enable global elites to build a digital dictatorship that tyrants of the past could only have imagined. Here are a few more ideas expressed by Dr. Harari that illustrate his worldview. So these are direct quotes from this guy who's assisting Klaus Schwab in this whole Global Reset World Economic Forum, things they're going for. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself, he says. He also says, science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. He also said, quote, humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have this soul or spirit and that they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside of me, so whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Now, humans are developing even bigger powers than before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. He also said, fake news has been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. And then last quote from him, all these stories about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news. So, what do we know about the Antichrist, the spirit of Antichrist and their direction? Remember, as I say, when things happen or things come up, where are they on the godless versus godly meter? Well, we clearly see where that's going. But have no fear, God is in control. And as Revelation 17:17 tells us, and I'm paraphrasing, they think they have a plan, but they're ultimately fulfilling God's plan. And they're bringing all this thing together, the whole one world thing is all to bring about what God's going to unleash upon them to usher in the beautiful millennium that we have to look forward to. Sister Minnie.
Yeah, I have always thought that the Bible says that if Jesus didn't shorten the time before he came, there would be no flesh saved. And I always thought that was like the atom bomb or the nuclear bomb, but now I'm beginning to think it is not the bomb.
Think smaller.
Yes,
Nanobombs.
much smaller, much smaller.
You have to be under some kind of mental or demonic, I mean, to think of the, who thinks of these things? Seriously, well, that's just it. I mean, if I was sitting there in my head on like my worst day, I don't think I could think of anything like that. I mean, that is just so crazy bizarre, so out of this world.
And presidents and prime ministers are graduates of their school.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to know what Wally and the Beaver have to do.
He's not dead after all.
No.
False rumors of well, that was the whole thing, was Tony Dow dead, you know.
I've met Tony Dow, by the way. He's a real nice guy.
He seems it, yeah. So with that awareness, we go back to the 6-Day War of June of 1967. And this will tie into Isaiah chapter 31. So again, the way I'm going to present this is basically a story time. How Rabbi Kahn does it in his book, he kind of does it according to different themes. What I've done is I've rearranged that so it all plays out and unfolds as a story, as it actually happened. So quick refresh on just a couple things from last week. So 2 important men that will come up in this war. Let's see, we want 163, so 2 more down right there. We want 165, there we go. We have Rabbi David HaKohen, who is the Nazir, who's taken the Nazirite vow, who won't leave his home until Jerusalem is restored. He is the father-in-law of Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who we've mentioned before. So let's just keeping him in the back burner of our brains here. That's Rabbi David Cohen. And we also have Rabbi Zvi Yehuda HaKohen Cook, guy on the right here. He's the one who on Sunday, May 14th of 1967, gave a speech that just shocked everyone with his crying out in pain, longing for the restoration of Jerusalem. And in hindsight, this is a priest heralding the Jubilee of Jerusalem that would actually come about. So just wanted to remind us of those 2 gentlemen that we will be seeing, if not tonight, then very soon. Now let me see here. One last thing from last week. Get this going here. Mentioned the Jerusalem Masada thing. Back in the 1st century AD, under the power of Rome, the Jews revolted in the 60s into the 70s. And the Zealots were the ones who had taken over from the Jews. And so Rome destroyed the Jerusalem temple on August 6th of AD 70. I want to make this bigger so everyone could see it here. Let me go ahead and see. I'm going to stop the share of that and share that screen, make sure everyone can see it. So August 6th of AD 70 is when Jerusalem fell to Rome. And it was on March 31st of AD 74 that Masada fell. So Jerusalem fell and Masada fell. Yes. You betcha.
Jerusalem had been under Roman occupation for many years.
Yes. What happened was the Jews revolted and kicked Rome out.
Yeah, this is something that I have never
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about that? Oh, right on. Yeah, the whole reason that Rome destroyed Jerusalem was because of the Jewish revolt. And this was during Bible times. This was after, not long after the death of Peter and Paul and before the writings of John. So when you reread the letters of John, after he wrote his gospel around this time, or read Revelation, that was all written after the Jewish revolt, after Rome conquered Jerusalem and even Masada. Masada was the last stronghold holdout with the Jewish soldiers there that committed mass suicide. And so the number of days between the two are
No audio.
there we go. Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, the thing kicked off. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So on October 13th of 1963, the Jews returned to Masada under Yigael Yadin and started the excavating. And then so if we take down here and we take that 10/13 of 1963 and we add 1,333 days to it, we get June 7th of 1967, and that is the return to Jerusalem. Gee, jumping Jehoshaphat. So 1,333 days between the fall of Jerusalem and the fall of Masada, almost 2,000 years ago, and the same exact 1,333 days from the return to Masada to the return to Jerusalem, to the day. So pretty spiffy. A Jubilee is a reversal of what was done before. It's a return to what was. So you go back the same direction things came out from. So now we are going to go to Mount Scopus, which also takes us right back to Rome. So we are going to go to right there. So close you and go to, there we go, there we are. All the way back to slide number 12. It's been that long since we were here. Here is Mount Scopus overlooking Jerusalem. That's how it's got its name, like telescope, scope, see, look. So Mount Scopus is right here in the foreground, overlooking Jerusalem, all over here. Okay, so the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 was connected to one place above all others, Mount Scopus. See, in fact, here you can kind of see more. It's on a hill that's overlooking all that. So Mount Scopus here was very pivotal. How so? It was the headquarters of the Roman general Titus. It's from Mount Scopus that the siege of Jerusalem was commanded. It's from Mount Scopus that Jerusalem was destroyed. It was the base of the Roman legions that destroyed Jerusalem. So as Mount Scopus played a central part in Jerusalem's destruction, so it now plays a central part in Jerusalem's restoration. And as the leaders of the Roman army stood on that mountain, planning the city's destruction, so in the 6-day war, the leaders of the Israeli army, Minister of Defense Moshe Dayan, other high Israel officials, now stand on the same mountain after it's secured to plan the city's liberation. So here they are on Mount Scopus, overlooking Jerusalem. So this guy, Moshe Dayan, the Minister of Defense, pretty spiffy guy. And guess what his #1 resource was for his battle strategies? It wasn't the art of war. It wasn't anything but the battles of David. And he saw David's guerrilla strategies. And I know this guy looks like a James Bond villain, but no. And so Moshe Dayan succeeded very much in his battle tactics because he mirrored them on the Bible and the battle plans that were in there. So here he is on Mount Scopus, planning to retake Jerusalem, right the same spot where Rome was when they planned to destroy Jerusalem. That's Mr. Moshe Dayan. So here we are. We're on Wednesday, June 7th of 1967. So the Israeli troops are now approaching the ancient city of Jerusalem, held by the troops of Jordan. This general, Mordecai Armada Gur, here he is, he announces to his commanders, quote, "We're sitting right now on the ridge and we're seeing the old city. Shortly, we're going to go into the old city of Jerusalem that all generations have dreamed about." So this is exciting times here. Here he is right here overlooking, he's on the phone here as they're overlooking Jerusalem. On the morning of June 7th, the 55th Brigade's commander, standing with his men on the Mount of Olives. His intelligence officer receives word from the Army's chief of staff to take Jerusalem. The commander then tells his men of the order. The brigade makes its way down the Mount of Olives, up Mount Moriah, and through the gates of the ancient city. Remember, we mentioned Mount Moriah Sunday, so that will come up. Now, let's read Isaiah 31, verses 4 and 5. Isaiah 31, 4 and 5. Isaiah writes, "For thus says the Lord to me, as the lion or the young lion growls over his prey, against which a band of shepherds is called out, and he will not be terrified at their voice, nor disturbed at their noise, so will the Lord of hosts come down to wage war on Mount Zion and on its hill. Like flying birds, so the Lord of hosts will protect Jerusalem. He will protect and deliver it. He will pass over it and rescue it." Okay. So there are two brigades involved. There's the 55th Brigade of paratroopers that he leads. There's another brigade that we mentioned last week that's on the hills, the Herald Brigade. That sort of clears the way for him. The commander of the Herald Brigade is Colonel Ben Ari. Ari means lion. Herald, the Herald Brigade, Herald means the mountain of God. Har El. El means God, Har, mountain. So in battle for Jerusalem, you have Colonel Ari and the Herald Brigade, the lion and the mountain of God. So the Lord fights as a lion from Mount Zion. Okay. The operations officer of the Army Central Command, who directs the battle for Jerusalem, who gives the critical command to the 55th Brigade to take Jerusalem, is Colonel Arik Regev. Arik or Ari, A-R-I-K, not E-R-I-K like me, a similar root but different. So here he is. And yes, Arik means lion. My version of my name, E-R-I-K, means ruler or leader. So a similar root here. So that's Arik Regev. And last but not least, we have the intelligence officer of the paratroopers brigade. Scroll down here. Who receives the command to take the city, who comes up with a plan that puts the paratroopers in place to enter the city gates, is Eric Achman, whose name also is Lion. So the man who gives the command to take Jerusalem, the man who receives it are each named Lion. And the one who devises the plan that leads to the return of Mount Zion is named Lion. You got all three of them there. And by the way, Back to this guy, Mata Gur, the commander of the 55th Brigade. 55th Paratroopers Brigade commander who charges his men to take Jerusalem, leads them into the gate, one who takes the Temple Mount and then the Western Wall, Colonel Mata Gur. Gur comes from a different Hebrew root. It means lion cub or young lion. Colonel Gur and his intelligence officer we saw earlier, Eric Akman, are the first two to enter the gates. Eric means lion, Gur means young lion, the lion and the young lion fighting for Mount Zion and its hill that we just read in Isaiah 31:4. So finally, word is given to Colonel Mata Gur, commander of the 55th Paratroopers Brigade, to take the old city. He leads his men to the sealed up gate on Jerusalem's eastern wall. Gur breaks through the gate, enters the old city. For the first time in 2,000 years, Israeli soldiers are standing on the streets of Jerusalem. Now, I thought the Jewish Legion helped liberate Jerusalem back in World War I, but they were under Britain. These are Israeli soldiers of the nation of Israel now. So, just as Jerusalem was lost when Roman soldiers swept down from the north into the Temple Mount, so now soldiers of Israel sweep down from the north into the Temple Mount. It's at this moment that Gur radios the words that are heard all over the nation. The Temple Mount is in our hands. The prophecy speaks of a lion roaring over its prey. In this case, the Lord roaring as a lion. In this case, over Mount Zion and its holy hill. So it's Gur, the young lion on the Temple Mount, who roars to Israel and to the world these most famous lines of the whole war. Temple Mount is in our hands. So let's have a little fun. I want to see who is the first that can identify what we are about to watch. Tell me the company that this represents. Of course, there's the name right there. That kind of gives it away, but anyway. Anyone seen enough movies to know what this is? Lionsgate. Yay, Lionsgate. Now I want to watch a movie. Okay, we get it. We get it. But that's not the first Lionsgate. See the lions up here? Yeah, they produce movies.
Asked if that was a movie.
That was a company that makes movies, produces movies, Lionsgate production company. So here we have lions at this gate here.
Where are they? I'm sorry.
Where are they? This is the gate the soldiers enter through to win Jerusalem.
No, where are the lions?
Oh, right there.
Oh, on the wall.
Yep,
Oh,
right there. Yeah. So all these guys named Lion enter Jerusalem through the Lion's Gate. Now, a little bit on this Lion's Gate here. Bring up a name from the past. So this Lion's Gate is known to most Christians as St. Stephen's Gate. On the Via Dolorosa, the path that it is believed that Christ walked to his crucifixion. This is the starting point, going out of Jerusalem to the site of the crucifixion. So why are these lions here? The lions are carved into the wall under the orders of Suleiman the Magnificent of the Ottoman Empire. He's the one who took over from Selim the Grim, Selim the Great. He did this to celebrate a battle from 1517, 450 years earlier. Remember the Jubilee cycle. Why lions? Legend has it that Suleiman's predecessor, Selim I, Selim the Grim, he dreamed of lions that were going to eat him because of his plans to level the city. He was spared only after promising to protect the city by building a wall around it. This led to the lion becoming the heraldic symbol of Jerusalem. Of course, there are scriptures about lions too, but that's where that comes from. So the Ottoman Turks, 450 years ago, put these lions on here he did a little later to celebrate that guy. And now all these guys named Lion, including a lion and a young lion, are first to enter the gate through here, the Lion's Gate, to restore Jerusalem. Just as Isaiah 31, 4-5 refer to. No, can't make it up. Now,
And this is during the 6-day war.
this is, yep, Wednesday, June 7th of 1967. This is, bam, they now, after all this time, after 2,000 years, Israel as a nation now has Jerusalem again now. Because remember the partition plan, they didn't get Jerusalem, and neither did the Arabs. Because after the war that was launched the next day, when the Arabs, 5 nations of the Arabs attacked Israel, that Jordan took Jerusalem, and Israel grew at about 60% in their land. So it went from the United Nations having it to Jordan having it, and now Israel has Jerusalem. Wednesday, June 7th of 1967. Jonathan Cahn makes an important point, though. The prophecy that we read in Isaiah says it will be as the lion, but it will be the Lord. Very, very important point here to remember. The manifestation of lions in Jerusalem's restoration isn't about lions. It's the sign from ancient times that behind it all is the hand of God, bringing to pass the prophesied return and restoration, the Almighty roaring and moving as a lion. So very important while we look at these details and see how these things fall into place, God's the one behind the scenes. While we see what mankind is trying to do right now with nanotechnology and injections and things like that, and one world order and all that crazy stuff, and bioengineer, and we have now divine powers, and we're going to make men into gods and all that crazy stuff. God's in control behind all these scenes. Very important that we be aware of past and present and how things are aiming towards the future. But bigger than that, the spirit behind the scenes. Recognize what's in keeping with the spirit of Antichrist. Recognize God's in control, no matter who the players or the events or the different things are.
Did the Egyptians not think of this? I mean, anyone who, especially in these countries that are so old and have so much history, and do they not know prophecy? do they? I was watching something on YouTube early this morning. I was up very early, and it was these people, fussing about Trump or whatever. And it's really not the best thing to be watching at like 5 o'clock in the morning before you get up. But I thought I kept going to you talking about him putting the embassy in Jerusalem. That just kept going into my head. And then when we study the kings, how God uses good kings and he uses bad kings and all this stuff. So do people not see this? I mean, and especially in other countries where, this is their back door,
Yeah.
It just seems like, so, Egypt is going to believe, these people telling them this, and we're going to go up against Israel because we're going to win. Not so much. Did they really think that, God wasn't going to be with
Some may trust in horses, some may trust in chariots.
They don't believe in it.
Some may trust in the military equipment supplied by the Soviet Union, but we will trust in the name of our Lord. And there's a willful ignorance, which is ignorance by choice. La, 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 which Peter writes about that. That's how man will be and is about creation and the flood. And there's also just plain old denial and just the arrogance and pride. Wait, I'm in control. I have power. I can do things. Well, of this ancient stuff, come on. This is just a bunch of fairy tales and a bunch of superstitious people believing this, a bunch of unintelligent, where we are the masters, we are in control, we have the knowledge, we have the power, we can conquer. And this is why, as mentioned before, every life is precious, but just for awareness sake, when you read about armed conflict on any level between Israel and any of its neighbors, you'll see, several hundred on the Arab side killed and a handful on the Israeli side. It's always, or most often, stacked that way. So Speaking of Trump, Rabbi Shlomo Goren. Why do I say speaking of Trump? Stay tuned. As Rabbi Shlomo Goren, remember Shlomo is Hebrew for Solomon, means peace. Shlomo Goren enters with the soldiers through the lion's gate. He sets the shofar to his mouth and sounds it. It is the very moment of the Jubilean return. He continues sounding it as he and the troops make their way to the Temple Mount, another prophetic return of the Jewish soldier to the sacred ground that was lost in the war against Rome in AD 70, and another Jubilean moment 2,000 years in the making. So, Mr. Shlomo Goren and your shofar. The soldiers make their way down to the western wall. Some weep, some pray, some cheer, some just stand in silent awe, too overcome to speak. And as the Roman soldiers of Titus had sealed the destruction of Jerusalem with the display of the Roman standard, the flag, so now Jewish soldiers seal the city's restoration with the display of the Israeli flag hung by the stones of the western wall. The Israeli paratroopers enter the Lion's Gate, make their way through the cobblestone streets of the ancient city. They advance toward the Temple Mount and the western wall. It's the first time that Jewish soldiers are seen in biblical Jerusalem since ancient times when the Romans destroyed it. They reach the western wall, the holiest site of Judaism. There, looking up at the massive stones above them, soldiers stand in awe, many in tears. Spontaneously, they begin reciting the ancient Hebrew prayer of the Shehekianu, and I'm going to butcher the Hebrew here, but Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam shehekianu, v'yikimanu, v'yehaganu, lezma heza. No, I'm not speaking Klingon. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sustained us, who preserves our lives, and who has enabled us to reach this day.
That's a pretty powerful picture.
Yeah. In the midst of the soldiers, standing at the western wall, is Shlomo Goren, holding the ram's horn. He sets it to his mouth and blows. The sound of Jubilee goes forth in the Jubilean year, on the Jubilean day, in the Jubilean place, at the Jubilean moment. The same sound ordained in ancient times to proclaim the return of the exiled heirs to their lost inheritance, now proclaims to the world the return of the Jewish people to their lost inheritance. Amen. Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who sounds the shofar at the western wall to proclaim its liberation, speaks to the soldiers gathered at the wall. He says, quote, "The vision of all generations is being realized before our eyes. The city of God, the site of the Temple Mount and the western wall, symbol of the nation's redemption, have been redeemed." Now, Rabbi Goren isn't of the priestly house, but through marriage has become part of it. His father-in-law, Rabbi David HaKohen, was born of the priestly line. He's actually a descendant of Aaron. In ancient times, it's the shofar belonging to the priests that marked and ushered in the nation's sacred times and holy days. Rabbi Goren obtains the shofar from his father-in-law, the priest. So the shofar that is sounded in Jerusalem at the moment of Israel's return to her holy city is the priestly shofar. So as it was in ancient times, so it is here, June 7th, 1967. The shofar of the priest sounds in Jerusalem to usher in the sacred times of God. So Sunday morning, we talked about the threshing floor. The original state of the Temple Mount was a threshing floor. In Hebrew, threshing floor is goren. So the man who returns to the threshing floor is named threshing floor. In the Jubilee, the original state of the land is reaffirmed. So Goren's very name manifests the original state of the land and reaffirms its ancestral connection to the Jewish people. The Temple Mount was purchased by King David when it was a Goren, a threshing floor. And it is the man named Threshing Floor whose feet literally stand on the threshing floor, the Temple Mount, to sound the shofar on the day of the threshing floor's redemption. We're not done. Shlomo Goren was born in 1917, along with Yigael Yadin, the year of Jubilee, the year of the Balfour Declaration, liberation of Jerusalem from the Ottoman Empire, the year of return and restoration. When he ushers in the 50th year, he himself is 50 years old. It's the Jubilee of his own life. It isn't only the shofar that is the sign, it's the man himself. He is its embodiment. He's the Jubilean man. So the Jubilean man sounds the Jubilean shofar in the Jubilean year, in the Jubilean place, at the Jubilean moment. And as he sounds it, the ancestral possession passes back into the hands of those to whom it belongs. So I said, speaking of Trump, here's Rabbi Shlomo Goren. Rabbi Goren's family's original name is Gorenchik. Gorenchik means horn, as in ram's horn, shofar, trumpet, and trump. So the man who sounds the horn at the Western Wall is named Horn or Trump. The central figure in the Jubilee of 1967 is Rabbi Horn or Rabbi Trump, or trumpet, or shofar. Yes, that's a fact. That's just is what it is.
So run me through that again. So Goren
Goren means threshing floor in Hebrew.
means threshing floor.
The original full name, Gorenchik, which means trump, trumpet, shofar, ram's
That
horn,
So Gorenchik
is the fuller name.
is his fuller name?
Yep, the older family name that got shortened to Goren,
Okay.
which just means threshing floor.
So how do you get from Trump to threshing floor?
Trump and threshing floor are apples and oranges.
Okay.
But Goren and Gorenchik, same guy, his original family name is Gorenchik, got shortened to Goren.
Okay.
As names get shortened over the years as
Okay.
families do their
Well,
different
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So this is a big deal, this moment. First time in 2,000 years, first time since the calamity of AD 70, Jerusalem is in Jewish hands. The holy city restored to the Jewish people and the Jewish people to the holy city. The moment is prophetic. This is a keystone in biblical end time prophecy. When we talk about Israel being God's clock, Jerusalem being restored to Israel is huge. I mean, that's a big shift. There's like a before and after. There's pre 6-Day War and there's after 6-Day War, as far as the Jubilee restoration of Jerusalem as the next big chink, the next big hurdle, the next big step in the moving forward of these approaching end times. What's that?
The right brain or left brain, I don't know what it is, but I just now made out what that is. But all I see is like this clown face up there. Do you see that? See where that guy's thumb is? That's the mouth. And it goes down and then up, and there's an eye right there and an ear.
Oh, this is fun. So I'm gonna guide my cursor.
Okay, so that's his ear. Then go across there, and that's his eye. Okay, and then down and then nose, and then the mouth going around that guy's helmet. And then underneath-
Oh my gosh, his mouth is open. Yes.
I have to
So
write
we've-
things up for him. I just now got where the guy's head was.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm having images of Clarabelle and oh gosh. Here's the fuzzy hair, eye, nose, open mouth, and yeah. Anyway, that clown is not who we're talking about. And no, that's great. That's funny. I love it. So not to be confused, that's not Shlomo Goren up there. This is Shlomo Goren down here. On the horn. Yeah, thank you, Sister Carolyn. That was funny. So, Jubilee, largely focused on being restored to one's land and inheritance. Every year on Passover, The Jewish people conclude the ceremonial meal by saying, "Next year in Jerusalem." Now they're here. Apart from the restoration of the land itself, there could hardly be a greater restoration for the nation, for the Jewish nation, in 2,000 years of history than the restoration of Jerusalem. So what does, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Please.
I should have mentioned this a minute ago, but I think I wasn't seeing what Carolyn was seeing, but I've seen that under his other arm, his left arm, there's some of the scrolls.
Yes, absolutely. Good catch. So not only does he have the shofar, but he's also got the sacred scrolls as well. Being a good faithful priest, he didn't forget his Bible. He didn't have it on his cell phone anyway. So what's the restoration of Jerusalem have to do with the mystery of the Shemitah and the Jubilee Shemitah connection? So a slight bit of math here, bear with me. The Jubilee must take place in the year following the Shemitah. Think about it. Shemitah is every 7 years. 7 times 7 is 49. So 7 sets of 7 years is 49 years. Jubilee is 50. So it's the next year after the 7th Shemitah, the 7th Sabbath year. It's actually the Jubilee year 50 of that cycle is actually year 1 at the same time of the next cycle. So while it's year 50 that's celebrated, it happens every 49 years. Otherwise, the Jubilees and Sabbath years would completely get off from each other. The Israeli soldiers enter the Lion's Gate on June 7th, 1967. The year before this in the Six-Day War was the Shemitah. The Shemitah began on September 27th of 1965, ended on September 14th of 1966. So the liberation of Jerusalem takes place in the year following the Shemitah, the Jubilee. Just like with the granting of the land of Israel for Jewish homeland, the regaining of Jerusalem is a prophetic Jubilee. Jubilee lifted up in prayer by Jewish people all over the earth for almost 2,000 years. A mega Jubilee. This is one of the big ones they've been waiting for. As in 1917, again, it takes place year following a Shemitah. Jubilee is year of liberation. Same way now, after almost 2,000 years, Jerusalem is liberated by her children. Now, we are going to go back to Jerusalem of gold. Why? When the soldiers that liberate Jerusalem find themselves in the Temple Mount, not only do they say that prayer, they spontaneously begin singing the song they just learned weeks before, Jerusalem of Gold. And when the songwriter, Naomi Shemer, hears of Jerusalem's liberation, she knows she has to add to the song another set of verses. So she writes of the children of Israel returning to their ancient city. So I'm going to play just a section of the English subtitle version, but now pay attention. I believe it's right at, I did it right. Yeah. So now pay attention to the English lyrics that are new verses after Jerusalem's been restored.
ושוב נרד לים המלח בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אוהבים. ירושלים
So the new lyrics include, they've returned to the water cisterns. They've returned to the market squares. They've returned to the Temple Mount. The sound of the shofar, the ram's horn can now be heard from the holy place. And all around the city, in the caves she had just described, howling with the winds of desolation, now 1,000 suns are shining. So pretty cool. So if a song of joy turns to lamentations, then in Jubilee, songs of lamentation are turned into song of joy. Prophets talk about that in the scriptures. The Lord would bring the Jewish people back to the land, would turn their mourning into joy. So in the year of Jubilee, Jerusalem of gold turns into a song of joy. So June 7th, 1967 is the moment of Jerusalem's liberation. Among the first Israelis to enter the walled city is Shlomo Goren, the chief chaplain of the Israeli army. The same rabbi who accompanied the soldiers to the Temple Mount and then the Western Wall speaks the first blessing of the prayer service there. And we are going to stop there for tonight because we will pick up next week with the return of Rabbi David Cohen and Rabbi Yehuda HaKohen Cook and see what roles they have to play in this restoration. So with all that storytelling and unfolding for this evening, are there any other thoughts, observations, comments, or questions from anyone?
I just wondered what their reading was for that day.
We're going to get to that. Because we are coming up on a Sabbath, a Saturday. Right now, this is Wednesday that this happens. There's the war, the 6-day war ends on Saturday, June 10th. And there's a Sabbath reading for that that relates to Rabbi David HaKohen and the events that we're going to pick up on next week. So I'm so glad you said that. Anything else from anyone else before wrapping up tonight? If not, we'll go ahead and stop our share here for now and stop the recording.